To understand what my perspective is on this issue, I have to tell you a little bit about myself personally. I grew up in central Illinois, a university town, and I was raised in the Lutheran faith. And on the way to being confirmed as a member of that church, I had to attend Saturday school and Sunday school for several years. And it was during that process that I had the opportunity to question the minister directly. And by that time, I had a lot of questions. And first thing I wanted to know was what was going to happen to all the Jews. And he said, well, they're going to hell. And I said, well, what's going to happen to all the Buddhists? And the minister said, they're going to hell. And I said, well, what about all the people in Africa? They're going to hell. And I went home. And I told my parents I didn't want to go to that church anymore because I could not believe in my heart what this guy was telling me. And I don't mean to cast any aspersions on anybody's beliefs because I respect all religions as long as they're nonviolent and peaceful. And, you know, it didn't work for me. That's all I can say. And I was lost after that. There's a period in my life where I didn't have any guideposts. I didn't have a moral foundation. Because once something that you're given doesn't work for you, then you sort of just spin it out. And I started reading books. And the first book that really sort of keyed me in on something was On the Road by Jack Kerouac. Introduced me to a lot of concepts of Eastern religion. Things like Dharma and Karma. Those were words I first experienced from reading On the Road. I guess the thing that really made a big difference for me was when I went to Woodstock. And I found there was hundreds of thousands of people just like me that read the same books, that had the same problem with the fundamentalist type thinking that they've been handed down by their religious teaching. And we were a culture that believed in peace and brotherhood and sisterhood, and we didn't believe in the profit motive, and Woodstock had to be free. And nobody was going to profiteer on this culture. And what happened is, Woodstock morphed into something called the Rainbow Gatherings, which are held every year at a different national forest, and it's free to attend. Anyone's attended. Everyone's welcome. Doesn't matter what your skin color, your religion, whatever. There's camps for every single thing you can think of at a Rainbow Gathering, and all the food is free. Everything that happens there is just given freely, and it's a totally different environment. Totally different world than the everyday lives that people live here. And it's the kind of world that I'm trying to project myself into on a regular basis. But it's very difficult because it's illegal for us to hold ceremonies because our sacrament's illegal. Because it's very clear to me, after being a part of this culture since I was 15 years old, and I'm 50 now, that marijuana is the sacrament of the counterculture, just the same way wine is a sacrament to the Catholic Church. It's not fair to persecute the counterculture. This country used to take, up until the 1950s, Native American children away from their parents, put them into Christian boarding schools, force them to convert to Christianity, refuse to allow them to learn their language or their culture, and I think that's terrible. That's a terrible crime that we committed. We should have respected those people and their culture. We shouldn't have tried to destroy it, and that's essentially what's been going on with the counterculture. I didn't invent the idea of marijuana as a sacrament for the counterculture. I didn't invent the counterculture. I just found that, hey, this was what worked for me. This was a culture that didn't preach bigotry or racism. This was a culture that was completely nonviolent and devoted to peace These were the things that I believed in. So here was a culture that I found that I could believe in. And by the way, the sacrament is marijuana. Okay? So I'm going to live with that. I'm not going to deny it. And I'm not going to let the United States government tell me what I can do as part of my cultural or spiritual practices. I don't think it's right, and I think it's used in order to persecute this culture. And there's a tremendous amount of bigotry against the counterculture in this country. I've been hippie profiled my whole life, so I know what profiling is about. And I find that this bigotry is seeped into our whole culture. So the kids who grow up today, they have a very negative impression of the counterculture because of what the propaganda has been telling them. The same way they have a very negative impression of marijuana because there's a tremendous amount of propaganda. And I think that that's wrong because the counterculture has done a lot of wonderful things. And I'm not here to proselytize. I don't want anybody to come to a rainbow gathering with me or convert. Or I don't care. But I just want you to understand, you know, try and see this from my perspective, that I should have a right to pass my culture down to my grandchildren without fear of them being arrested. And I don't have that right now. And it's very troubling. And I think if we want to live in a society that practices what it preaches, and you're going to say that we respect freedom of religion in this country, you're going to have to allow spiritual access to cannabis. Thank you.